All right, folks, it's time. So get ready, get set, get comfortable, grab yourself a drink, maybe a little popcorn, because here comes another episode of The Next Conversation. I hope you enjoy. And we're live. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is another episode of The Next Conversation. I have the usual trio. I have Bobby A. I have the Haitian Wanderer, Joseph Mark. So, for this episode today, we're going to be discussing something of which I have no business talking about. I literally know nothing about this subject, but I do have two guys who know a lot about it. And already they've kind of whet my appetite. We're going to be talking about FIFA and this enterprise that is like global soccer and the World Cup football. For those of you, I apologize, but really, this is going to be a Bobby A special. Joseph Mark knows this business as well, so I'm going to just, without further ado, I'm going to alley oop the mic to Bobby A. Let's set the table. What are we going to be talking about?
Hello, everybody. Good to be back in the nest. Always got to get that in first. But I do have a question before we continue the intros and we go to Joe. Chris, have you ever had? I know you're getting into the port wine scene. Yes.
Yeah, man. I had a glass of port wine yesterday.
Yeah, there you go. Have you ever heard of Magnum? Not the condom, but have you ever heard of Magnum, the wine?
Yeah, I have. But isn't that like is that a good wine or is that a champagne?
No, dude. It is a wine, and it's from the Caribbean. It's a Jamaican tonic wine, which I highly recommend.
Tonic wine?
It's called the Jamaican tonic wine. Yes,
Wow.
and
Okay.
so I'll explain it a little bit. Both of you should start drinking it immediately. I'm telling you right now, and here's why.
Interesting.
It's a fortified wine, so it's similar to port in that it's
a higher
stronger.
alcohol content.
Yeah, correct. And it's stronger than normal red wine. It's like 18%. However, it's infused with vitamins and minerals. It has a bit of caffeine in it, and it has aphrodisiac properties. So it comes in, the normal, not the bigger Gatorade bottles, but the normal Gatorade bottles in the bodega. It comes in one of those, and each bottle is as if you drank 2 tall glasses of red wine. You took a multivitamin. You drank a cup of herbal tea, like a green tea, so that you get a little bit of a caffeine kick.
What?
And it's like you took half a pill of Cialis or Viagra. I swear down.
What in the? I did
Mad.
not.
I want to say that this is probably something you can only get in a Bronx bodega or in Bed-Stuy. Am I incorrect in that?
It's something you can only get in a Caribbean neighborhood, correct? In one of those bodegas. But I was to not last Saturday, the Saturday before. I've met a lot of people from the Caribbean in my travels through New York City and mostly watching football, which will segue into this conversation because the Caribbean has a big influence on the voting, but we'll get into that later.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to a house party with, which was mostly people. They're native New Yorkers, but their parents are all immigrants from the Caribbean. And I had 2 bottles of those, and I was flying afterwards. I'm telling you, it was. And then the next day, yeah, I know. And then the next day, I went to Football Factory, and one of my friends, she's from England. She goes, "What are you drinking?" And I go, "Magnum." And she goes, "I hope that's a soft drink." I go, "No, it's the opposite of soft. It's the very opposite of soft. That shit gets you going."
Very intriguing. I have not heard of this, and if I get the chance to try it, I definitely will. I always like to try like a new drink. I kind of find it interesting how like different cultures have like different alcoholic beverages that they enjoy. So this sounds intriguing to me. I will have to try it.
This one is good when you're at you're at a party. I mean,
Like
whatever you like,
festivities.
whatever preference you fancy, it'll get you going. I'm telling you, I had it for the first time 2 weeks ago. It's like I'm on Magnum now. This shit's fucking fun. um,
Intriguing.
yes,
And how that kicks us off with the subject of which we're going to discuss
correct.
today.
So this subject was born out of a new Netflix documentary series that just launched, I believe, last Thursday. So like 4 or 5 days ago.
Mhm.
And it's about the corruption of how FIFA prior to the 1970s was, because football wasn't as big of a sport in the 50s 60s, at least not especially in America, in the Caribbean, in Central America, in Canada. Pardon. But after watching this series, you realize how the money involved with a country like the United States and the voting rights of islands in the Caribbean, because each country, it's a little different. It's not like the electoral system in the United States where you get a certain amount of votes based on population. Jamaica's vote, uh, Barbados, Trinidad, Tobago, their vote counts just as much as England's, Germany's, Italy's. It's one for one. Each country gets one vote. So no matter how many, the United States has almost 400 million people, they still get only one vote.
All right,
Whereas
we got to roll back. Hold
yeah,
on, before,
yeah,
because I can already feel the
yeah.
intensity starting to brew.
All
All right,
right.
so let's for those
Yeah, you gotta rein me
listening.
in. Yeah.
Yeah, for those listening, because here's the thing:
Yo.
I'm actually a good person to talk to about this because I don't know. So like, you're talking to the least common denominator in your audience, which is kind of great.
Right.
All right, so first off, we're talking about this episode's going to be called FIFA, right? So
Uh,
for those of you who are not rabid fans of soccer, football, for our European and non-American listeners, right? We have the FIFA, this massive, and I was talking to Joe a little bit about this yesterday, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. FIFA is this massive organization which manages, among other things, or mostly, or the big thing, is the World Cup. All of the intricacy that goes along with the World Cup is managed by FIFA, correct?
yes, but it's more
Okay.
than that.
Okay,
Go
more
ahead.
than that. But like, here's
Now,
FIFA. Hold on real quick.
do they also manage the other federations around the world, like UEFA and
CONCACAF. Yes.
yes, CONCACAF? Okay, okay.
Yes.
Okay, so they manage many different soccer leagues, federations, but it's a massive, like, it's worth billions of dollars, correct?
Yes. Close to trillion.
Okay, so we're going to talk about this massive, massive sports enterprise, which controls pretty much the soccer empire, right? Soccer is the number one sport in the world, and FIFA is the organization at the top, let's say, managing or having its fingers or its tentacles intertwined with that sport at a global level. And among other things, it is the enterprise that manages the intricacy of the World Cup, where it's going to be, all the money that comes in for it, etc. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So
Okay, cool. Now, for the audience members, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about soccer, and we're talking about FIFA, this massive organization that manages many aspects of the World Cup and a lot of other aspects of the soccer in the world. All right, go back to you, Rob.
yeah. Yes. Exactly. Thank you for. Because I presumed everyone would know that. That was well done by you.
No, it's cool.
I
I'm
was
gonna
just
be
gonna.
that. So if I interrupt you, it's just like be like, all right, I don't
Yeah.
understand. Like,
Please.
all right, for the person who doesn't know about soccer, I'm gonna ask you dumb questions.
Yeah. Cut it in any time, please. I beg you. Because I'll just how what I do. You know what I'm saying. so, uh, so yeah, like you said, so FIFA is the top of the pyramid. It's, if this was an umbrella, any international competition, whether it's under 17, under 21, even teenagers, under like early 20s, the pro soccer players, every international competition is governed by FIFA, and any type of professional soccer league in anywhere in the world, in any country, is governed by FIFA as well. So you can see already the reach. It reaches every corner of the planet. FIFA is in every country in all over the world. It's everywhere. So which is different. Which is different than normal sports because NFL, NBA, they don't have this type of control. The NBA doesn't control the European basketball leagues, whereas FIFA controls every single professional. Anytime anyone's getting paid to play soccer, FIFA's involved. All right, that's probably the easiest way to look at it. Now, with this responsibility, obviously, what do we always say? When you have this much power, naturally corruption comes into play. So this docu series um, examines how corruption seeped into FIFA and then it spread all over the world. But we can get into like the logistics of that more. But let's go to Joe. What's your overall thought on this?
You're more of the expert when it comes to football than I am, but everything that I've found out about FIFA and then their subsequent corruption scandal, I found out from this. I haven't seen the documentary yet. I plan on watching it after I'm done with The Crown, but I've seen most of the tidbits from like ESPN Shorts and John Oliver when he covered the World Cup before this one, which is I think in Russia, and I think that's what started the whole um, process of looking into FIFA and their financial dealings.
Yes. So the World Cup, the last World Cup was in 2018, was supposed to be in England. However,
Hmm.
everyone's fucking boy Putin steps in and buys it from FIFA, and then obviously the FIFA, all their high officials at that time were all still involved in the widespread corruption, which was part of awarding Qatar the 2022 World Cup. So prior to that, I would say in like 2012, 2011, Putin bought the World Cup. He stole the World Cup from England by just bribing all the FIFA officials to move it to Russia. Same with this one. This World Cup was supposed to be in North America. It was supposed to be in Mexico, US, and Canada this summer. But Qatar came in with all their money, and with all that, you get with both those countries, with Russia and Qatar, you get the various, let's just put it lightly, human rights violations. So that's why a lot of people were upset that Qatar got awarded this, because it was clear that the only reason they won the bidding, because the way to take a step back, the way the World Cup is awarded to a country is by, it's the same thing as the Olympics. It's a bidding process where
Mm-hmm.
you have to set up a presentation, and there's like weeks of it's almost as if you're trying to sell yourself to the Olympic committee. And here it would be FIFA. You're trying to sell the country, and oh, we're going to host this wonderful event. It's going to help. And they use, the shitty part is they use, oh, it's going to bring so much money and jobs and housing to our country, and it's going to be good for our country like economically and our people. But mostly the money finds its way into the pockets of the high-ranking FIFA officials. And like you said, like that, I believe you, that article you sent out earlier, Chris, where a lot of people, that gets swept under the rug too. A lot of people die constructing, because usually when you get
Mm-hmm.
awarded in an Olympics or a World Cup, you have to construct all new buildings and stadiums, and like an Olympic village, there's like a football village where all the fans can congregate. You have to build these massive structures on, and arenas as well, and residences and businesses. So a lot of people die in this construction, and the labor conditions also on top of that. Even if you don't die, you're basically a slave. So it's this. Go ahead. There's a lot of
No,
shit
I was just
going
gonna
on.
say, yeah. So like the thing I sent you earlier today, because just in not even in preparation, but coincidentally, I had seen someone had posted regarding, I guess in Qatar, that in order that they had to hire, they use the word in the article hire, but I would imagine, as you said, in some of these countries, slaves do exist still. That essentially they needed to bring people to bolster their audience, right? So to kind of like be dummy fans,
I
just to
saw
fill up
this.
to
I
fill up the
saw this.
space a little bit so it
I
doesn't
think they
look,
brought in Indians to like mimic other countries' fans that are actually going to pop up in the broadcast, and it was kind of weird to see.
Yeah, it's interesting. So with this, I have a couple questions. So FIFA, right? FIFA, do we have any idea like what's the history of FIFA? Like how long has FIFA been a thing? And like how did it become so powerful, right? Cuz you were saying Rob that this is like not this is kind of a newish thing. Like soccer wasn't as uh I mean it's always been a global sport, but I guess you're saying that FIFA as an organization did not have the amount of wealth and control and power that it does now. So like what was the transformative events that has made FIFA into this like multi-trillion dollar business? Do you guys have any like background on that?
Yeah, I do. So FIFA started in the early 20th century,
And is
right?
FIFA an Italian company?
No, it's based in Zurich, Switzerland.
Okay, so
So
Joe, you were correct. Okay, keep going.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. Uh, so it was pretty much there was no um, real money in FIFA before the 60s and 70s. Um, and what changed everything is there was a World Cup in Argentina in like 19 in the early 1970s, like 1978 I think is the year where FIFA started selling its TV rights and its merchandising rights for the World Cup to this. It was a hold on, I think I need to look it up. It's a German like advertisement marketing firm. And that once I don't know the name, so everyone bear with me, but you can look it up. Basically, there is a French president of FIFA. I forgot his name. It starts with an H. He was the president of FIFA, and he was the first one to start monetizing the game. Because prior to that, for the first 60 years of just professional soccer and excuse me football all globally and all the tournaments, the European Championships, the Copa America, the World Cup, because each continent has its own tournament, Chris. So not only do you get the World Cup, but each continent has its own like big tournament every 4 years as well. Um, and once this guy came in charge, if it's a joke, can you mind looking him up? He's a French guy. I want to get his name. And
I got you.
he was the president before Sepp Blatter was, and he started selling the rights because football became so popular globally, and he started monetizing, like selling the rights. He was a proper businessman, so he said this game has become so gigantic globally. Why aren't we like taking advantage of this? So there's a German advertising firm that they paired with. I think his name is like Bossler, the head of the German firm, and they got together and they started selling the rights. So that's where you get the television deals, the T-shirts, the kits that they wear, all like memorabilia, collectibles, and they started making so much money because, as I said, the sport has such a global reach. You have you have fans of, let's say, Manchester United, because it's a big global brand. You have fans of Manchester United in India, in Japan, in Russia, in Australia, in every country in Africa, every country in South America, every country in Central America, every country in North America, every country in Europe. It's think about that. Think about being a sports franchise that has fans in every single country all over the world. That's unheard of in any other sport. No other sport has that. So they started realizing this, and they said, "We could. This is a cash cow. We could be making a lot of money off of this." So then they start monetizing it and commercializing it, and then it skyrockets. However, it skyrockets once the money starts rolling in. The head officials start taking kickbacks, and that's when the corruption starts seeping in. So now that I think by the Spain World Cup was in 1982. by 1982, football was so big globally that hosting a World Cup would gain a country multi-billion dollars. So if Spain, France, Germany, the U.S. had it in 1994, just by hosting a World Cup, you can bring billions of dollars into your economy just by hosting this 1 month long event. And once that started happening, obviously, what do we always say? You got to follow the money. Once the money started rolling in from all over the world, that's when the corruption started coming. And that's when FIFA got so powerful that they were able to sway politics. And because they got so big and had so much financial clout, they were able to sway governments in terms of making policy and laws. They were able to, their connections, they were able to hide money in banks all over the world and stuff like that. So it actually...
Yes.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Keep going.
So
Finish your thought.
What I want to say is that's where we can get into the sports washing part of it, and this is where I think FIFA is a good example because it mirrors. Like, I don't mean to sound like Alex Jones and all those guys, but FIFA actually mirrors what he says. A lot of things. Alex Jones is a fucking crazy man. I don't think anyone can deny that, but some of the things he says is true. A lot of the things he says is absolutely...
He throws a lot on the wall, and then some things
of it stick.
And when it sticks, it really sticks.
You're correct. And FIFA it's actually a great example that mirrors what he's trying to explain with like this global financial organization. But he's thinking more of like dark like control and stuff like that.
Yeah, like the Illuminati.
Yeah. But so FIFA's a little bit like it's not that level, but it definitely has connected the world through corruption and fraud
So what's the fraud? So like some of these things that you're talking about, right? So like what it sounds, because this they perfectly mirror, right, the Olympic. What I forget what even the name of it, but like
the Olympic bidding process, yeah,
well, not IOC. The bidding process, but the organization,
the International Olympic Committee.
Thank you. So right, like there's a variety of probably dirty dealings, right? Because as you said, that it is a huge. It's not just the like with the Olympics, right? The clout that you get from having it, hosting it, right? Countries vie for that, but like as you said, there's also like economic benefits. Like I think. Don't the country who hosts the Olympics, they do receive a clout and potentially an economic benefit. On sometimes it's actually downside, right? Because now you're also forced to build infrastructure to support the bringing of all these people to your country and the hosting of them. But like as you're saying, so what is some of the dirty dealings? Like there's I guess the hiding of the money, which is one thing, which I think that's. If you have trillions of dollars, you're trying to find ways to like protect that money and hide it. That makes sense. But like, what are some of the other, not conspiratorial, but what are some of the accusations, let's say, that this biopic on Netflix, like what are some of the things that they bring up in that program?
So before I answer that, his name is João Havelange.
I was just about to say.
Yeah. He's
and this
Brazilian.
is like
but he's Brazilian. I was thinking the same thing.
He's Brazilian
of the FIFA.
No, there's several presidents before him, from what I checked. But he's the one from what Rob is saying, that ushered in this new kind of
transformation,
corporate FIFA.
He was, if you want it, he's the one who changed FIFA into a criminal organization. Let's just call it
the Michael Corleone of the FIFA empire.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. That's a good. So he's the one who created the monster, basically.
God. Okay, keep going. So yeah, go deep, because what does it have its tentacles in? Like to me, it's like it's entertainment. It's soccer. There's the World Cup every 4 years. This is what I was trying to talk to Joe about. It's like it's kind of weird. Like they do more than the World Cup, right? The World Cup takes place every 4 years. I guess it takes 4 years to plan for it. But you're saying they're also getting money from all these other, you said teenage, like non-professional leagues and whatnot. Do they have their hands in like every soccer federation?
Yeah, absolutely. And not only the men's game, the women's game. They control the women's World Cup. They control the women's European Championships. And like I said, each country has their own continental tournament. So there's multiple national tournaments every single year, which FIFA oversees. They govern all of that. But instead of being a lawmaking body, they became more of like a political financial entity, and that's where it's you. They started aligning themselves with dictators, um, like the Argentine dictator from the in the 1978 World Cup. There was there was one story from the documentary where there was like an imprisonment camp, because this is when there was like an insurrection in Argentina against this dictator. What was his name? Vega, I believe his name was. Um, I think so. And there was an imprisonment camp right like 2 blocks away from one of the main stadiums, and people were dying. People were being tortured, and no, Jorge Videla, not Vega, Jorge Videla, and there was people were being tortured and executed like minutes away from a soccer game going on, right there. So they started aligning themselves with any government that will pay the most money. And the flip side, the good part for the governments and all these dictatorships and regimes were that they were able to like launder their reputation and cleanse themselves through football, through this tournament, through the sport. They can cleanse their image, quote unquote, to the public, and that's where you get into the sports washing stuff. So that's I think that's FIFA's worst thing was they created a platform that was so popular it became undisputed number one sport in the world with so much influence. Like even look at Cristiano Ronaldo. I think if you asked 95% of the people that live on planet Earth, they would know who he is. And he has like 700 million followers on social media. It's insane. You think Brad Pitt has a lot of followers, or Lady Gaga? They probably have like 40, 50 million. Ronaldo has 700 million. There's more people know who he is than any human being on the planet. I think I would put money on that. More people know who Cristiano Ronaldo is than any other human being that's walking the earth right now.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So that's
Well, because
how
you think like the how right basketball people, not every country follows basketball. It's not that important. Like LeBron James is a massive star, but there's probably parts of the world he can go in where he might not be recognized potentially. But
yeah.
you're right. Like a huge the majority of the world follows soccer, and if you're a star at that level, like millions and millions of eyes are watching you, which is kind of, you're right. Like that's insane that 700 million people follow him, let's say on Instagram. And that's just not like what percentage of the population is on Instagram,
Yeah,
not the
exactly.
full population. So, I mean, even more people are fans who are following his life to some degree by watching the sport. That's crazy. That is can you imagine that?
Yeah,
I
I
wonder
know.
what that feels like. Do you feel pressure? You got to feel pressure with that many eyes on you. That's an interesting phenomenon.
I
Keep
know.
going.
I know.
I do
That's
want
a
to jump in
go ahead.
when um so in regards to the whole like corruption scandal, I feel like it kind of the ball really got rolling in like 2010 when I think was it South Africa that got it, Bobby?
Yeah, it was South
Okay.
Africa.
So we have all these countries that are trying to build up their name in the on the world stage. And like Rob said, and you have just this kind of atmosphere where countries are willing to do whatever it takes. That's willing to spend whatever kind of money to try to boost their reputation, to try to bring themselves up on the international stage for nationalism, for a whole bunch of different reasons. And you just throw money at the wall, and in this case it doesn't stick, because I feel like in the post 9/11 world, trying to host these kind of events, it's not financially viable anymore. Like I remember with Athens when they had the Olympics, they they almost they are suffering right now through bankruptcy and financial ruin, partly because of the Athens Olympics, Greece that is. And it's pretty much the same thing with the World Cup, where you have South Africa. They bribed a bunch of FIFA officials. One who I found out from the John Oliver like episode, this dude named Jack Warner, who I think is from either Trinidad or Jamaica, one of the two countries.
He's from Trinidad Tobago.
Okay, from Trinidad. He was bribed like tens of millions of dollars to try to get his vote because he's an influential figure, I think, underneath Sepp Blatter, who was the president of FIFA at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And you had South Africa, and then you had Brazil, and then you had Russia and Qatar, and these are all countries that really are looking to put themselves up on the international stage. And a lot of these countries, they built facilities on the backs of migrant workers who were paid pennies on the dollar for all the work that they did, and they brought in even slave labor to try to build these facilities too. But even then, on a competitive level, a lot of these games were in areas where it wasn't really conducive to playing well. Like I remember hearing stories like in Russia that the pitches weren't all that great. It was kind of like a little swampy. They moved the Qatar World Cup from the summer, which is normally played, to November at the end of the month because of fears about heat. And I think they were worried about the same thing in Brazil at the time. Um, I just, I don't know. It's just weird to me how it's all done for pride, national pride, and you're just losing money. It's just bleeding money to all these people who have all these different kind of financial interests. And it took was like a weird FBI sting of all the people, of all the organizations in the world to try to take down international organization like FIFA, who was based in Switzerland, a European nation. I would never think that the FBI would get involved to take down all these figures who were involved in bribery scandals to try to award World Cups to these countries that probably should not have gotten them in the first place.
Yeah, so this stuff I'm trying to like I'm definitely a fly on the wall of this conversation because a lot of this stuff is going over my head. Um, but it is kind of interesting how like, this is like sports is entertainment, just to some degree no different than Hollywood or any other form of entertainment. It's kind of crazy though how in this day and age, because of the demand for entertainment, sports is entertainment. How massive these companies can become, and how in that they can become so extremely powerful. So like now you guys are talking about like how an entertainment business or an entertainment company has the ability to hobnob with the rulers of the world. And that's to me that's just kind of interesting. Like how how this has an effect on like global politics
Mm-hmm.
and like global relationships. Um, Joe, it's interesting you bring up the Olympics and how
It's
Greece
ex-
had fought to get the Olympics there, knowing full well because if I recall, people were saying that this was not going to be a good thing. Like this was going to be a tax, like a an economic tax on their economy and how you're right. Like they're still seeing to some degree the ramifications of this one decision now.
and this same
That's
thing
crazy to me.
happened. The same thing happened with Brazil. They had it
Yeah,
was
exactly.
honestly the way Brazil did it actually made a lot of sense because they had the Olympics, and then a couple of years later, then they had the World Cup. So they bundled it together.
Mm-hmm.
But even then, they have so many sports facilities that are actually just crumbling, that are not being used, that there are facilities that are not being used for the people of their nation, and it was only spent for like 4 weeks out of a year for them to just show off their Brazilian pride. And it's just doing a disservice to the people of those countries where you're sure you get all wrapped up in the pageantry of a sporting event. But then once that sporting event is gone, then you have to deal with all the ramifications of crumbling infrastructure, tens of millions of, if not billions of dollars being wasted
Mhm.
on trying to clean up um, like waterways that they were going to use to try to shuffle people back and forth, building facilities for the athletes to actually be housed in. It, it's just it's just odd that you can have countries like Greece, like like Brazil, like South Africa, and in this recent case, Russia, with the a bunch of the little riots that happened during those games, and now Qatar with the human rights violations that seem to be being kind of shuffled underneath the rug.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm gonna jump in real quick. So
Hmm.
so because we've kind of made one contradiction, which I want you guys to kind of like talk about for a second. In one case, Rob had said that people vie and essentially bribe FIFA.
Hmm.
Probably the same thing happens with the Olympic Committee. I would imagine if you dig deep
Mhm, for
Yep.
sure.
to have, yeah, definitely to have these events in their home country, right? Like they're paying money. Please come have this event at our in our place. And Rob had said earlier because of the financial benefit that it could potentially bring.
Mhm.
Now, and I believe that. But also, Joe is rightfully saying that in many cases where these events have taken place, it has done the exact opposite. It has created longstanding negative ramifications. So, my question is, why do countries fight to have these massive events? In this case, let's keep it with the World Cup. Let's not even talk about the Olympics. To have this massive event, right? And we're talking third world countries trying to fight to have this event there. What is the reason? Is it because there's a financial benefit, or is it less tangible of like, this shows that we are moving up in the world, it's bringing eyes to our country? Like, yeah, why would a country like Brazil, who's maybe struggling in certain areas, fight to have this event? Is it monetary, or are the reasons less tangible but still very important? Because you
It's
both have said the opposite at two different points in this conversation.
That's true, but here's the rub: it a lot of it is financial, and I'll get after that after I say this. A lot of it is the country wanting to show its cultural
Hmm.
traditions to the planet, because with events like the World Cup, you have, if you look at the television ratings, like the viewers, it's well into the billions, and with that comes you get to tell stories about, because it's not just, oh, we're going to show one football match for 90 minutes. It's a month long of coverage, so even
Yeah.
channels
Hmm.
like Fox and ESPN and NBC and Telemundo, because Telemundo is under NBC. So anyone who, if you're not watching the World Cup in Spanish, I can't fuck with you. Because you better be watching that shit on Telemundo. I'm telling you right now. The best presentation of coverage. But anyway, so it's a lot about propelling your, or purporting, excuse me, your image to the planet, and saying, this is how Brazilians, this is our lifestyle, this is our
Hmm.
cultures, these are our traditions. And then with a country like Brazil, football is in their DNA, it's in their genetics. So it's more of, we want the World Cup in our home nation because this is our sport. This is what every child grows up playing. This is, we want to win, and we want to win it in Brazil. So it's a lot about that. Now, on the flip side of that, you got countries like Russia, and Russia did the same thing, Joe. Russia had the 2014 Winter Olympics and then the World Cup right
Hmm.
afterwards. So they had a package deal as well. They probably bribed both of them. They bribed everyone. So for
I do.
Russia,
Before you continue, I do
mm,
find it odd that the Olympic Committee doesn't get this kind of scrutiny that the World Cup is getting?
It's probably because maybe it's the amateur status of the athletes. I don't know. That's a good
Hmm.
question though. I can't answer that. But that's my my immediate just off the cuff guess would be it's because none of the athletes in the Olympics are professional athletes. That's what, or most of them,
Hmm.
because in Olympic hockey there's professionals, Olympic basketball, so there's some professionals there. But anyway, um, so
So,
I,
are there any like characters within FIFA that are kind of like? Is this a like? Are the suits of FIFA well known? Like, can you name names of? Oh yeah, like I know the president, I know this person, I know that person in this organization,
yeah,
or
they're pretty public. Yes.
and like
Um,
what are some of their personalities? Like, what is your take on like some of these people who run this massive enterprise?
Okay, so but to tie up that last point, Russia wanted the World Cup to just show its dominance and world power, like very Russian thing to do. So you
Mm-hmm.
see what I'm saying? So there's a difference. Like Brazil wanted to celebrate Brazilian culture, Russia wanted to show like we're the best country in the world. All the best events are here. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why they did it. But in terms of personalities, yeah, like Sepp Blatter is probably the big one, and Michel Platini, who's from France. Sepp Blatter is Swiss. Sepp Blatter he's your classic Baelish Varys character. He's operating in the shadows. He's pulling the strings. He has a talent of making friends in the right places. If you catch
All
my
right,
drift.
this is where I
Yeah,
wanted this to go. Keep
yeah.
going, man. Who is this person? Tell me more.
So Sepp Blatter he started as like a low level FIFA official under João Havelange, the corrupt the one who orchestrated
I
who
love these names, man. They're
yeah
so menacing.
and he escorted in this era of darkness and Sepp Blatter was started out as his glorified assistant. So he wasn't on the FIFA council. He wasn't on any tribunals or anything like that. Or what's the word I'm looking for? Like the FIFA, yeah, there's like a 12-member council, like a head council. So he started there, and he worked his way up until he became Havelange's he confided everything in Sepp Blatter because he was working with him every day. It was like Jon Snow and G.R. Mormont. You see what I'm saying? Does that make sense? That analogy. He was the steward. He was his steward, but he was being
Yes. Yeah. Like
he was being
go.
groomed for command. So and
Yeah, he was like a squire.
yeah, exactly.
Yes.
But as he started climbing the ranks, he started to learn the lifestyles and the preferences and the behavior of all those who were much higher up the ladder than he was. And he started learning about them. So he keeps getting promoted, keeps getting promoted. This is over the course of like 25 years. So he did it the hard way. No one can knock Sepp Blatter in his determination. But he and the docuseries does a good job of explaining this. He says it. They interview him, and he goes, my dream ever since I was a child was not only to work in football but to be the president of FIFA. That's what he wanted. So he did everything he would. So you want to talk about betrayals and backstabs? He did some, especially with like the voting processes.
Wait, like what? Like tell me.
All right,
Yes. Give me the
so
details.
Joe,
Like I want to know. I'm not gonna watch the probably the Netflix thing. I might actually because now this is turning into like Game of Thrones of
it's
like
exactly what it
soccer.
is. So Joe mentioned Jack Warner earlier. So Jack Warner was the president of CONCACAF, and CONCACAF consists of Canada, United States, Mexico, all the Central American countries, so like Nicaragua, Honduras, and all of the Caribbean countries. Now, this is where remember when you stopped me earlier, where it's like the voting rights. Sepp Blatter
Yeah.
realized that it's like, wait a minute, why am I focused just on Western Europe, where it's like Italy, Spain, Germany, uh, England, all like the powerhouse football nations? And he's like, when I can just go like get like go down and snake through the grass, get in bed with the Caribbean nations, and there's like 35 islands. They all have the same one vote that Italy does. So why am I going to try to appease myself to Italy when I could just go to CONCACAF and get like all these, because there's several Central American countries and North American countries that he can just, and so he started befriending Jack Warner, and him and Jack Warner became best friends until he gets all these votes. Like he schmoozes Jack Warner, obviously bribes him. Jack Warner actually demanded money when he met with Sepp Blatter. He's like, if you want all the votes of my nation, of my federation, excuse me, you gotta have to pay me money. So he pays him, but Jack Warner also was a snake in the grass because he lied, saying, "I'm gonna use the money that Blatter gives me under the table to help like the youth projects and develop football in my countries and give it back to the people and give it back to like the children and everyone growing up playing the sport." But he just put it in his pocket. He kept it for himself, bought a couple houses, of course. And so he befriends him, a powerful ally, and the person running against St. Blatter, his name was Johansson, is from Sweden. All he focused on was Europe. So he got all the European votes, but Sepp Blatter got in bed with CONCACAF, which is North America and Central America, Common Bowl, which is South America. He got in bed with Africa, so he went to all the continents. He literally flew there. He flew and met with all the federation heads, and it's like he basically did what Tyrion did when he was Han, where he had that meeting with everyone in the small council, and he cut a deal with every person. That's what he did. So he went all over the world and cut a deal with every federation head. And then when the voting started, he blindsided Johansson because Johansson thought he was going to sweep Europe, the European votes. But Blatter, once everyone saw the traction that Sepp Blatter was making all over the world, they were like, we can't back if this is a horse race, I'm not going to back a loser. Sepp Blatter is clearly going to win. So then he started getting European votes. And there's 2 rounds of voting for president in FIFA. After the first round, Blatter didn't win, but I think you have to get 128 votes, which is 2/3 of all the countries that are registered with FIFA. Blatter had 110 and Johansson had 80 at the end of the first round, but Johansson knew that European countries had defected, so he literally went up to the podium and he conceded. He quit. He didn't even wait for the second round. So basically, Sepp Blatter outchessed him by going directly, because a lot of Europeans look down upon like Western Hemisphere soccer because they think it's inferior. They think, oh, we invented the sport, we're better than you. It's like a colonial perspective. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
they like, we're better than them. They're peasants and commoners. We can go over and take all their gold and their women and take all their lands. That's what the Europeans think like.
I mean, but they are better than us, though.
What the hell does that mean?
In terms of competition.
Oh yeah, on the football pitch,
Yeah.
Yeah, but couldn't you also say that they also? I mean, some of the stars of the European teams are not from Europe,
Yeah, a lot of them are South American, man.
right? Isn't some of the more famous ones are definitely not from Europe?
Yeah.
They might play on a European team, but they're not European.
So yeah.
Okay, so this guy, how long has he been president for? Of the FIFA organization?
He was president for I think 17 years, I believe. But then he got impeached when the Qatar scandal came out. Joe, it's pronounced Qatar.
Crazy.
It's pronounced Qatar, Joe.
I thought it was Qatar.
No. The World Cup is coming up. It's Qatar. If you want to get native, it's Qatar.
Yeah,
you got to roll that R at the end.
You got to cut with it.
Yeah, yeah.
So okay, so yeah, so that this organization has been the more you talk about it, the more I'm like I'm having flashbacks to Game of Thrones. Like it's
It is.
just it is like medieval politics.
Mm-hmm.
So as I was thinking about what you were talking, telling that very good story, this is the question that came to my mind was like these people who get into it, right? Like this guy, you've probably watched interviews with him. Did these people get into this because of a love of the game, and then over time it just like the business takes over their motivations, or is it like any other industry where certain people just see a gateway towards power and wealth? It just so happens that they entered into an organization that focuses on soccer, or is it that they come in love genuine love of the sport and a passion for it, and then they just get kind of consumed by like business in general? Does that make sense?
It does.
It's like a Hollywood producer. It's like some people probably just they went to school, they got MBAs or lawyers, and it's like I'm going to get into a business to try to make as much money as I can. It just so happens I get into a studio that makes movies, but like I don't really care about movies. It's just that's the thing that my business peddles. And then you got people who get into like those studios because of a genuine love of like entertainment and movies and TV. And then they just kind of get absorbed into the business side of things. But like at their heart, if they go back in their mind, their first love was actually like Hollywood or movies and stuff like that.
From what I see with Bladder, it seems like he fell into it. From the things I'm just looking at it right now, it seems like he was into the Swiss Hockey Federation, and then he went over to the Olympics. It just seems like he fell into I would assume a love of sports and sporting, but then once he got into FIFA, then he really found his footing and got, I would say, he fell in love with he fell in love with
The Game of Thrones.
with the corruption. Yes.
Yeah. All right. What about you, Rob?
Yeah, I think Joe is right. Initially, it's I would say there's three types of people. There's the people that are, like you said, strictly in it for the business and the investment and the financing and like the equity and all that. There's people
The
in
power.
it, yeah, definitely the power and authority. There's people in it for just because, whether they're ex-footballers or not, they're in it because they just love the game. Then there's people that love the game that turn, and I think that's what Sepp Blatter is. He's the last one. He was initially he was in it because he wanted a job with FIFA. That's it. He didn't care about the chess game or the power or the money. But once he saw what was available to him, and his mentor, he was the protege. His mentor was the creator of the current money system that you see now.
Mm-hmm.
It tainted him, and he turned. So go ahead.
Okay, so I was gonna ask you, like, so for you two guys who, I know, Rob, you watch football, you watch soccer I would say, very passionately. Joe, I think you watch it, but maybe not as frequently
I would say
as
I'm
Bobby.
more of a league soccer, like basically a British soccer novice. Everything else I'd really
Why do you love England so much? But that's a conversation for another day, man. So what I was gonna, because you do, man, you have like some infatuation with this country. No offense,
No.
but so my question was though, it's like if you could change one thing about FIFA or about soccer in general, like the sport, the entertainment, the business of it, like do you have like if somehow you became the president of FIFA tomorrow, is there some things that you would do differently or that you would change that you see as like a negative towards the game? Let's throw this to Robert first because I think this might be a question he's actually pondered before.
Mm-hmm.
I would would change a few things. I would change some of the, because right now we're on a one-way street to more teams and more tournaments and more games, basically more money. So all the leagues are contemplating having more games. All the international tournaments are allowing in more teams to qualify. So it's basically the more matches, the more teams involved, the more money. So what I would do is I would go back to the classic setup for the World Cup, because the next World Cup that's going to be in the U.S. it's not going to be 32 teams; it's going to be 48 teams.
That's oh
Yeah,
man.
it's going to be crazy. So there's going to
And
be like
how is that? Like, how did that happen? Like, how is there more teams? Isn't it
FIFA.
one team per country?
No, FIFA. Oh, of for the entire history of the World Cup only allowed 32 teams to qualify for the World Cup. 32 nations, 32
Hmm.
countries. Now, because of the popularity that it's gaining around the world, so now in the U.S., I mean, don't look now, but football is becoming. It's gonna. By the time I finish this sentence, it's gained a million more followers. So by the time the 2026 World Cup comes, football is going to be more popular than baseball, and it's going to be more popular than NHL hockey for sure. The only two sports in America that are going to be more popular than soccer are NBA and NFL. It's going to pass both of them by 2026. So because of the rising popularity in it's skyrocketing now, FIFA's like, oh, guess what? There's going to be more money. Let's let more people. It's the same thing they do with the playoffs, Joe. So Chris, the American sports are
Yeah,
doing it too. They're
I
allowing
hate
more
it.
teams to qualify in
Hate
the
it.
playoffs. It's all about more games,
My,
more teams involved, more money.
for
So
TV. That's exact. That's Rob is 100% right. It's all about getting TV viewership. More games you have, then more people are going to watch because of all the things that people watch on TV. Live TV gets people to watch more so than anything else because we have more of the streaming kind of thing where people watch um, stuff like on Netflix and Disney Plus on their own time.
hmm
But when you have live TV, it's live.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you can't. So I would imagine for ad time and whatnot,
Mm-hmm.
live TV is just pristine, right? Because you know you're gonna have eyeballs. If there's a, a half a billion people who watch soccer, and you put an ad up, there's probably a half a billion people that are gonna um, watch that advertisement.
Yeah, exactly. Especially with a
To,
global event like that.
to answer your question, Chris, if I was gonna do something different to get rid of like the kind of sport washing that you're seeing in all these kinds of sporting events, and especially in football, I would have a rotation of hosts. No more bidding process. No more corrupt um, underhand dealings of cash under the table. Just have a round robin of hosts. Each one host from of the major like continent, like South America, North America, Europe, Asia, Australia, Africa, and just rotate it to a country that's in one of those continents. That's the to me that's the best, most equitable way to actually have a host, and you don't have all these like these countries that keep getting these events because they are the ones that are willing to spend the most money to get it.
Yeah, but I guess that's kind of like unrealistic as well. Because right, think about it. If you're, I don't know, 48th on that list, and it's every 44 years, that's like a few generations when you'll host the World Cup. I think there's countries out there that are going to say, you know what, if I'll pay money to skip the line. Um,
Yeah,
but
it's
yeah,
true.
that's
That
right
it,
because it's like it's not something that's happened every year. Because every year it's like you could maybe get people on board for that, but every 4 years is a long time. Like there's there's going to be countries that are just refuse to wait that long. Um,
yeah,
you know,
that's never going to work. It's there's too much at stake for everyone to just like patiently wait in line like that. No.
Yeah, I mean, it's like who knows exactly. It's like some of these countries. There's, I feel like I don't know if we'll be here 48, like that many
Yeah.
years from now.
So,
Um, yeah, that's it, Rob. That's kind of crazy. I didn't really think about it, but you're right. Like I didn't realize how much soccer has grown in countries like America, where soccer was never the the sport of the populace, right? It I wouldn't say it was, and how that's changing. Like, why is that changing? Like, of all the sports, why is it that soccer is becoming so much more popular in the U.S.? Like, what was the pivot point? What's gotten more eyes on the sport? The sport's been around. It's not like it's new. Like, why are people now watching
Right,
it in
exactly.
the U.S.?
This is a great question. So there's a myriad of reasons. But I think first of all, it's because now that it's on television, every every big league is on television every single week. Before, when we were growing up, and even when we were in fucking college, there was only one English Premier League game on every week, and it was Joe. Remember Fox Soccer Channel? That
Yeah,
it's like a defunct television channel that doesn't
I
exist
remember that.
anymore. Uh, there was only one game on every Saturday morning per week. That's it. Now you can buy ESPN Plus and you can see and Peacock. If you have ESPN Plus and Peacock, you can see every single English soccer game that takes place. It doesn't even matter if it's the lower leagues, the smaller divisions.
So access, like people, it's more.
Yeah.
Because I know, I think when we were kids, people who I knew who did follow soccer, like they'd have to wait. The hours were crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they could find a channel. Um, so yeah, so you're saying part of it now is like access, like with streaming services, with
Yes.
ESPN Plus. It's like you can, if you're a soccer fan, it's like you can watch soccer and you can watch. There's always a game
Anywhere.
going on somewhere in the world.
Correct. So you can see
I,
you can watch the Brazilian league, you can watch on Bein Sports, you can watch the Argentine league, the Brazilian league, you can watch on I think ESPN has the Bundesliga as well. Um, Serie A uh, is on TV. Who's on Paramount Plus? I think it's Serie A.
I said, yeah, I think it's Serie A, yeah.
Serie A is on Paramount Plus, which is owned by CBS, Chris. So you could watch any league. If I move from Italy to the U.S., I can see my team play every single game, all games, which was never possible before. So that's number one. Number two is the structure of the game, and I would say the lastly is the culture. But number two, meaning football is there's no pregame, there's no 1 hour halftime, there's no commercials. So with the younger generation growing up, if you sit down at 10 a.m. to watch a football match, it'll be over by 11:45, 12 o'clock, and it's done. It's not like a baseball game where if it starts at 7 p.m., it can end at midnight. You see what I'm saying? So it's
Yeah, so it's more efficient use of time. Like it's a standard amount of time. It's not going to go over that.
Right.
Now they do commercial breaks and stuff like that for a football game.
No,
Soccer
not
game?
at all. Not at all. None. Zero.
So that's
Yeah.
one thing, and I know that you've brought that up with like especially with like hockey and how
Yeah.
like you liked hockey because it's kind of a similar thing. Like
It's a limited
it
amount.
kind of was fighting, limited commercials.
Yeah.
Whereas with like football, it's football and basketball. I imagine it's
So many
and
commercials.
baseball.
Yeah.
It's almost built around around commercials at this point.
Yeah, the timing of the sport is built around the ads. Yeah, which is crazy.
I have two reasons for the uptick in terms of popularity in the United States.
Yeah. Also, wait, hold on before you do it. Also, the culture, like it's becoming cool, like social media wise, like
Okay.
on the
It's
internet,
becoming vogue. It's like
it's like
yes, people like
it's
yeah.
in vogue to
trendy.
follow football now. Correct. All right, go ahead, Joe.
I think the influx of the change in demographics in the U.S. with when it comes to the Latino population, I think is a big reason for the popularity surge in for for football in the U.S. I think they're bringing in, like Rob said, that culture here, and it's just kind of spreading. You have like first and second generation Latinos that are playing and watching the game, and they spread that kind of that enthusiasm for the sport to other people that they come into contact with. I think the second reason I think is a huge thing that I think people always forget is gambling. I think just
Dude, I'm sorry. I want to interrupt for one second because it's about gambling. It has become crazy to me. No, it's like I just noticed this in the last couple of years, and you guys are probably gonna be like, dude, you're an idiot. Like, come on, where have you been? But like, gambling and sports gambling and how like I guess the laws have just changed where I see sports gambling commercials all the time. Like I watch the UFC and like it's like the only sport I really follow where they have like gambling commercials. And then I also like sometimes stream things through illicit means and I will be watching something via like a British stream and you just see even how much more commercials there are on gambling.
Oh
Like
yeah.
it is kind of crazy how in like Europe how big sports gambling is as an enterprise and since it's I guess less frowned upon like just how many commercials there are for sports gambling. It's kind of crazy. It's like teenager like it's almost like a family commercial and then you find out it's like oh this is for X company that's a sports gambling company. Kind of crazy.
Yeah,
Sorry, that's my tangent.
I think Europe kind of pioneered the just getting away the taboo nature of gambling. I think they pushed that into the forefront, and now all these other countries are realizing, okay, we
Nah,
can.
man, I think Asia, man, I think Asia's been about gambling far longer than Europe
Yeah,
or
for a
any other
long time.
country. But anyway, keep going, man.
But there's no taboo when it comes. There's no longer as much of a taboo when it comes to sports because it's not deemed to be hurting the integrity of the sport when you have gambling and involved. I think
Oh yeah, it also probably increases. Like they probably at some point, sports gambling increases viewership of
I think
sports.
it
I imagine.
100%. I
Absolutely.
think, and I think one thing that people don't realize that is sports gambling is kind of fantasy sports. Like
Oh,
I think
100%.
fantasy sports is I think is a big reason why a lot of these sports and also football, like European football, really football, for it being so big because you have all these people that are novices into the sport, and then they figure out, oh, I can get into all these different players, these different teams, these different leagues by getting into fantasy sports. And it's just, I think that opened up uh, a big opening for FIFA and for all these other football leagues to actually gain popularity in the United States.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting the gambling side of things, sports and business, sports and gambling. That's maybe something we can talk about. We've talked about sports. I actually really enjoy talk. No, like you guys know, I don't really follow sports. I
Hmm.
really never have. But we've had a couple episodes where we've talked about sports from different perspectives, and it is pretty interesting. Like I actually learn a lot. I can almost say you guys have probably made me more open to sports. Where I'll watch a football game or something, and I'll enjoy it. I get more value because you guys have kind of like taught me the value of it. But what I do find interesting is the business side of sports and how right it is a massive enterprise. Like you met the athlete that you mentioned earlier, Rob, Ronaldo.
Ronaldo.
I think
Yeah.
Hmm.
he's one of the most highly paid athletes in the world, if I'm not wrong.
Oh yeah, easily. If you combine his like what he makes from like Nike and like his marketing stuff.
Yeah, I mean promotion, all his
Uh
money from the team and sponsorship.
yeah.
Like I think he might make more money than like LeBron James. I think he might be one of the top paid athletes in the world. And it's kind of crazy. You're right because like with soccer, I can see FIFA trying. I can see the dirty deals. It makes sense because you're right. You're creating all of these eyes. Like you said, he has 700 million people follow him.
It's
Almost a
wild.
billion
It's wild.
people are connected to him on Instagram. And that's because the sport itself is so massive. And if you're FIFA, you're benefiting from how large that sports viewership is. And it is kind of interesting. Like what happens when North America, that however the population of America, the population of Canada, these other like it's almost like colonization.
Mhm.
It's like sports entertainment colonization, right? Every country or continent that you can turn over to the sport of football, like that's money, that's eyes.
Yeah.
Um,
And
that's
America
very
is
it's
the
very interesting.
yeah, and America is the golden goose. That's what everyone wants. And
Oh yeah,
and China.
we're the emerald, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Asia and China.
Yeah.
I always found it interesting with like movies. A movie can bomb in America, but if it succeeds in Asia,
Oh, you're making
it's
mad money. Yeah.
succeeded.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
so
no,
to
very interesting.
so to your point, Chris, that's why a lot of teams want to sign Ronaldo, not because he's good, because he's regressed as in terms of on pitch performance. In terms of a player, he's still good, but he's nowhere near what he was when he was arguably the best player of all time.
Yeah,
You
he's past his prime, or he's
well,
on the tail end of his prime.
but teams are still like slitting each other's throats to sign him because as soon as you sign this man, you sell $700 worth of like merchandise. I mean, instantly. So you see, he's. I'm exaggerating a lot, but you get what you get the point. As soon as you
No, no,
sign
but you're
this
right.
man,
It's like you're bringing
it's a brand.
all of
Yeah.
the eyes
Yeah.
exactly. You're well, it's like Beckham, if I recall. Like
He's the same.
he
He was
was
the
the
same way.
best soccer player, but he had a huge following, and that made him very useful. Like, isn't that why they paid him so much money to come play on like an American team?
Yeah, that's why the league actually changed. If MLS changed the rules so that Beckham, they changed the way the structure of the entire league was just so they can get Beckham over to Los Angeles with his Spice Girl wife with Victoria. So
That's
they
crazy.
wanted them both in LA because now all the eyes are like, oh, David Beckham plays in MLS. So that he made a stupid amount of money for he made like 20 times more than the next highest paid MLS player. It's
Yes,
crazy.
as you were talking, this is a conversation for another day, but about baseball and the changing rules of baseball. And I wanted to ask if, like, has the game of football changed in this entertainment age? In now that there are commercials, now that you can stream, has that in a sense affected the game itself, or has like the game of football of soccer pretty much maintained? Is it relatively pure? Like, has is that another reason why people like it? Is that it kind of hasn't been changed or doctored? It's kind of stayed true to the roots of that sport.
Yeah, I'll take this question first, but I'm interested to hear Joe's take. I think that's one of the largest appeals. That's an excellent question. And that's what I would do if I was the FIFA president. I wouldn't change anything. I would just make sure everything stays exactly the way it is. Because now that there's an influx of American money, a lot of American owners are buying football clubs all over the world.
Mhm.
A lot of Saudi investment groups are buying football clubs all over the world. And you know what they want to do, Chris? They want to turn every soccer game into the Super Bowl. We want commercials
Yeah.
every 20 minutes. We want Beyonce on stage doing a 1 hour halftime show. We want this. We want a plane. We want like jet planes flying over the stadium before the game. They want to Americanize every football match. What I would do and what all the purists want, which is a good word. I think soccer is. I keep saying soccer. It's not soccer. It's football.
Yeah, it's football.
Football. Football is such a good sport because it's stuck to its roots for the last 130 years and it hasn't wavered. The only thing that's changed is now that there's technology, they've introduced video replay where you can overturn things, like decisions made by the referee. That's really the only major change. Everything else has stayed exactly the same as it was in the 19th century when it first started. So,
So you're gonna hate my take, Rob,
yeah,
because I think if the U.S. continues to get involved in football, I think they're gonna do a U.S. type of thing where if you notice all the other U.S. sports, they've tweaked their rules to make it more scoring friendly. All of the sports, even like you said, Chris, with Major League Baseball, they're tweaking the rules to make it more fast twitch, fast moving, so that the younger fans can get into the game. I think if football gets bigger, like MLS gets bigger in the states,
it's
it's going to
inevitable. Yeah.
be it's going to be tweaked where they're going to try to get more scoring in the game. I can see it.
Yeah, so they're gonna. I agree. But there'll also be instead of just halftime, they're gonna stop at the 25th minute mark and they'll go to a commercial break. There'll be like a
I don't,
TV timeout. They might try
I
to do
don't
that.
know. I think there's going to be just like the Super League stuff in Britain. I think there'll be a backlash if that happens.
Yeah.
I just think they're going to tweak it to make it more make have more
Mhm.
scoring in the game.
Yeah.
That's what I would see
Like the
happening.
rules. So what they're trying to do now a little bit is, I mean, Chris, you can jump in at any time. We're just gonna it's just us.
No, I'm just listening.
Yeah.
No, because it's like that's why I was curious. Like I know, for example, I watched something actually on baseball and how they were changing this. They're literally changing a
Purposely.
sport
Yeah.
that hasn't been changed in a long time, and they were explaining it. And it was to incite speed, to increase
Mm-hmm.
the action,
Because
let's say, and
they're
also
losing
potentially.
younger viewers, so they want to try to get
But
them back
also
by
the
doing
thing I
that.
found interesting with that, and I don't know if it really applies to soccer, was that they, at least when I was watching, I was like watching with a friend, and it was like their ESPN commentators were talking about it. But in the game of baseball, it was that in some sense, the players were becoming lazy, where there were, I don't want to say shortcuts, but there were ways of which you could position yourself and setups, let's call it, that minimize the amount of movement you had, like yeah, literal physical movement you had to do. Where I guess, like, I don't know. I don't know the game of baseball well, but like a shortstop might play a little
Yeah.
bit,
Talking about the
a
shift.
little bit
Yeah.
The
further.
shift, yeah,
Yeah, and it's
they're
like, all
getting.
right, so now it's like he's in the outfield, but he's not in the outfield. Like, it was pretty much minimizing the action,
I don't
right? The
see that.
movement.
I don't see that
Go ahead.
happening in football. What I would see what happening in football is them like maybe narrowing the field, the pitch. I can see them like trying to bunch in the players so that there's more movement of the ball. That's the only thing I don't
So
see that
actually making the field, which I
smaller.
believe is the pitch,
Yeah.
smaller.
Yeah.
And do you think, like, I
Yeah.
guess that's another interesting thing with the game of soccer, is that it is, since it's beloved by such a large portion of the
There's going to
world,
be a
and it's
backlash.
so rooted. Yeah, it's like, is that something that's even possible? Like, baseball is like our country, and then there's a few outliers, but for the most part, it's an
big. Yeah,
American.
it's big in Latin America.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
big in Latin America. It's
And
big in
Asia. Yeah.
Japan.
Korea.
But
Yeah.
it doesn't have like that deep rooted,
Yeah.
like
No.
almost cultural, like, attachment that soccer does.
Yeah,
Like,
it's tribal.
maybe I'm wrong.
No,
Maybe but yeah,
it's true.
I think it is. It's more tribal.
It's
Like,
tribal. Yeah.
even the poorest tribe in, I'm just going to throw out, like, somewhere deep in Africa that's very impoverished. They have something that looks like a ball, and they have two spots that they can play soccer.
Yeah.
Right? It is a sport beloved by all people. And that's kind of like the interesting thing I think about soccer in particular, is that it is a sport anyone can play despite socioeconomic barriers.
Mhm.
You can't play football, really, right? You can't.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You need equipment. Yeah.
Yeah. You can't. Basketball is, you need a ball that can bounce. That's one thing. And you need some hoops. Like, it's a little bit more. It's not. It's in more the soccer realm, where you don't need so much. Hockey, forget about it, right? Unless you
so
have some
expensive,
deep
yeah.
pockets, right? You can't play that game.
Mhm.
But football, right? You need something that you can kick. You can be barefoot. You can be wearing shoes.
It doesn't
You
matter.
need two spaces, and you need some open area, and you can play the game, and you can play it well.
Mhm. That's how
So, like,
most
for that purpose,
Brazilians
it's like
and
so
Africans learn.
loved.
Yeah. That's how
Yeah.
most Brazilians and Africans learn to play. That's how they become good. They play barefoot in the sand and on the dirt in like the favelas of Brazil.
Yep. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So here, we're gonna wrap this episode up. But, like, what are some final thoughts? Like, the FIFA thing is kind of interesting. Like, I might need to watch the documentary, because it is kind of interesting how. Well, no, because, like, dude, anytime that you have a company that's worth nearly trillions of dollars, those people have a lot of power. Like, money equates to power. Whether it's, your supply of money is coming in via entertainment, or you're, a Silicon Valley technologist building missiles. You know what I mean? It don't matter. Money's power, whether you made it from entertainment or technology. So, like, that's interesting, because there's going to be some Tyrion Lannisters, some Baelish characters in that story.
They're everywhere.
So I might need to watch that. But anyway, yeah. So, final thoughts. I'm gonna throw it to Joseph first. What are your final thoughts on FIFA? uh, football, the upcoming World Cup. Yeah, give us your final words.
I think in the kind of nationalist kind of fervor that a lot of these countries have right now in this moment, I feel like an organization like FIFA, they're taking advantage of these countries and just taking their money so that these countries can show off their culture to the
Hey,
world.
why didn't you bring that up earlier, man? That would have
Eh.
been some interesting stuff to talk about.
Yeah. Mhm, mhm.
No,
That's an interesting angle. I
Yeah.
had not thought
no,
about that, but
I just
yeah, keep
it's
going.
just something that I've noticed like since the 2000s. Just that a lot of countries are putting out this kind of like this aura of nationalism, and it's FIFA is just they're just feeding into it.
Mhm.
And I think the only way to get rid of that from the FIFA angle is to just get rid of FIFA or get rid of them monetary incentive for them to feed off of that. And I think doing something like the round robin thing would be the best way to go. Like you said, I don't think it's going to happen because I think too many countries are going to want to show off their cultures to the world. But I it's just crazy to me how you can have a country like Qatar, um,
Yeah, there you go.
Guitar.
Qatar.
how they can ruin thousands of people's lives by just trying to show off that they are arriving on the world stage. That stuff shouldn't happen. Russia shouldn't be allowed to do the same thing with hiring migrant workers to build their stadiums, or Brazil shouldn't have fading infrastructure that are not serving the people. It was just there for like a couple of months out of 2 years. It's just weird to me how these things can happen when it's all for just nationalism and power.
Mm,
Okay,
nice.
Joe, I'd like to live in your dreams at one point.
You got to be fair. You
Y-
should turn into Freddy Krueger.
Oh
your Bernie
God.
Sanders
Oh.
utopia.
Haunt Joe in his
Oh.
dreams. I hate Freddy
Ah.
Krueger. He's the worst one.
Oh, terrifying!
You
Dude.
can't go to sleep.
I don't like scary. No,
Nope.
man. Got this like scar. No, thank you. What a like that's a conversation for a different day. But what a demented storyline. A pedophile
Mm-hmm.
that is burned,
Yeah.
who now has the ability to enter children's dreams with like it's like come. That's a terrifying idea. Whoever came up with it, like he's already scary,
It's
right?
a
He's
sick
he's
puppy.
a
Whoever came
kidnapping
up with it.
pedophile. Now you're gonna light him on
Wes
fire
Craven,
and he's
baby.
alive.
You got to talk to
Oh
Wes Craven.
man.
He's a sick
Yeah,
puppy.
dude. He is. I mean, I would not want to be in his dreams or his nightmares. All right, hit it, Rob. What are your final thoughts?
It's to like stay on the same linear path that Joe is going on. I think FIFA mirrors the fascinating thing about this whole scandal is it's global and it mirrors a lot of what's happening in the real world with like the financial sector and the global economy and foreign policy and all this. So FIFA's a good example of how when big money gets involved and all these countries get involved and all these cultures get involved, that a lot of underhanded things start happening. And secondly, the last note I'll make is now in an age where, in terms of entertainment, we consume like almost everything I see on the streaming services is some true crime shit, some biopic. But Whitney Houston is getting another like Netflix movie. I think it's enough with the biopics already. For like someone do something original, please, for the love of God. And
That
it's
is
either
never gonna happen.
yeah, it's either some superhero bullshit, true crime, or a biopic about some sad. Everything is sad and depressing. Um, and if you're not watching the World Cup in Spanish, I'm not talking to you until Christmas. I'm telling you that right now. Watch the World Cup. To put all that aside and turn on Telemundo for a month and watch the World Cup in Spanish. Just do it. I'm telling you. Just do it.
Wait, so
I
when
did
does
not
World,
see that coming.
when is the next World Cup?
After this one,
Wait. World Cup's okay.
Oh,
It shows how stupid I am.
You said
The
next
World
one.
Cup is going on right now.
No, it starts November 20th.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, this is definitely this is tangible. 'Cause
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
we're about to see the FIFA's about to make reap the whirlwind. They're gonna be making dough hand over fist.
Yeah, it's not this Sunday. It's the following Sunday, the opening match.
And I have Peacock, so I might be watching some. Is it going to be on
No,
Peacock?
it's on Fox.
No, it is on Peacock, but it's only in Spanish, so that's better. Because
I'll watch it.
NBC
I'll watch
owns
it.
Univision and Telemundo.
'Cause I don't even
Yeah.
I don't even know Spanish, but I can read the body language.
Oh no, you're
You're
gonna
with their
have
body.
you're gonna have so much fun. First of
Wait,
all,
wait. So Fox has it in English, but Univision has it in. That's
in
I
the
didn't think they would do that.
Spanish rights, yes, correct.
That's
great.
interesting.
And also,
Wow.
Chris,
How
the
cerveza?
yeah,
Go ahead.
the presenters, like the commentators in the studio, are all beautiful Latin women. First of all,
I 100% imagine that.
and whereas Fox, you're gonna get these stiffs like Alexi Lawless and Maurice Adu. I'd rather watch a beautiful woman from Colombia dancing salsa. They dance. There's a party in the studio during the Latin presentation. It's way better, dude. It's just so.
I'm
much
watching. Wait, so when's the first game on? When
it's
when does
Sunday,
this kick off?
November 20th. Is the first match. The first
All right,
USA
I will
match.
Be
is the next day.
watching. All right, this is also something we're gonna do. We're gonna watch an episode, and we're gonna not an episode. We're gonna watch a game and stream it.
Oh
You and
my
I,
God.
we
We
will
should
do
live
live
stream-
commentary.
I'm down. Live commentary. Excellent idea. Excellent. It has to be
All
a
right,
weekend
ladies
then,
and gentlemen.
because
Yes, a weekend.
yeah. Go ahead.
Wait, what time of the game's on?
Right, 'cause the
Wait,
time
it might be.
difference.
I might. Oh,
So
That's true.
the time slots are 5 a.m., 8 a.m.,
Jesus.
11 a.m., and 2 p.m. So it has to be.
well,
we could do a 2 p.m. one.
I'm also off the week of Christmas, so if there's any games during earlier in the morning, we could watch them as well because I'll be around.
I
Alright.
figured it would be done by Christmas.
It's
Shouldn't it?
over by Christmas,
Ah.
yeah. But
Okay,
the-
we'll figure it out.
the weekend
make
2
this
p.m.
happen.
games are prime.
Oh, we'll do that
Yeah.
then. Ladies and gentlemen, this was another episode of The Next Conversation. Thank you for listening. Have a good night.